Ooh, welcome into the Gamblin Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson. He's Money Mainville. We've got a lot to talk about today. We'll talk about the slingshots engaged. We'll talk about some cars. We'll talk about some portaling with Tim Tadlock. But first, news broke on Thursday morning, I believe, about potential naming rights for two conferences. One being the Big 12, one being, now that I'm saying this, I think the American or one of those lower level ones. Or maybe the A10, whatever it was. Naming rights for two conferences. And then basically right after that first story from Dellinger was a story from Bette McMurphy detailing that it might be Allstate that's in conversations with Texas Tech. And it is $30 to $50 million, point A. And point B would be that it is going to be the big All-State Conference, or the All-State 12. Kyle, I'm going to start with you. Basic thoughts, first thoughts when you saw that news come across your feed.
Are y'all familiar with the band Sixpence None the Richer?
Yes.
Money, is that too long before your time? Do you know Sixpence None the Richer?
Yeah, I have no idea who that is.
The only song I can think of, though, is Kiss Me
Yes,
Beneath
but
the Moonlight, Kiss Me.
they covered There She Goes by a British band called The Laws from the 1980s.
There she goes.
That's the
All right.
one. And yeah, their other hit was Kiss Me. And I was going to sing it, but Rob, I think you covered it. Hopefully that rings a bell for some listeners. Do y'all know where their band name came from? Sixpence None the Richer?
No, I don't.
They went on the David Letterman show in the 90s, shortly after their big break, and explained the origin of the band name Sixpence None the Richer. They said it comes from a book by C.S. Lewis. We all know C.S. Lewis, right? Called Mere Christianity. A little boy asks his father if he can get a sixpence, a very small amount of English currency in use at the time, to go and get a gift for his father. The father gladly accepts the gift, and he's really happy with it, but he also realizes that he's not any richer for the transaction. C.S. Lewis was comparing that to his belief that God has given him and all of us the gifts that we possess, and to serve him the way we should do it humbly, realizing how we got the gifts in the first place. Now, Rob, in our Discord, which you can access at patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos, I don't want to misquote you, so I'm going to paraphrase. You said something like, every now and then Kyle just talks and it vaguely relates, and so people just go along with it. Do either of y'all know the point I'm about to make yet, or do I need to keep talking through some of this?
I'm going to let you keep talking.
Why are we talking about this 90s band and where their band name came from? So, the two words in our current conference name, Big 12, together, they have a certain identity, a brand. It means something to people when they hear Big 12. They go, okay, yeah, that's that conference in Middle America. But alone, like if you use the word big outside the context of the Big 12, or you use the number 12 outside the context of the Big 12, the Big 12 is probably not what somebody thinks of. Like if you go to a restaurant, you say, how big is the size large lemonade? They go, oh, a Big 12? Like that's just not, the words need to be together in order for it to have the brand power that it currently has, which is coming up on 30 years of brand recognition. And I think that's part of why you don't change the name when you add, or when you go down to 10, or when you go up to 14 or 16. And so in my mind, let's say they get on the high end of that 50 million. That's $3 million per school per year to basically give away your conference brand recognition and kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say cheapen your product, but if the other Power Four conferences remain the ACC, which has decades of history behind it, the SEC, the Big Ten, some of those have almost 100 years, and you're the All-State 12, I feel like we'll be finding ourselves in the position of the father from this story. We'll have received the $3 million, which sounds a lot, sounds like a lot, and then look around and go, was that worth it to give away the brand power? And some people listening to this and probably going, well, your brand power is already behind the SEC and Big Ten. True, 100% true. But do you dig yourself into an even greater hole by becoming the All-State 12? I don't think so, especially for that amount of money. Now, if it was going to close the gap, and okay, we're getting $75 million payouts like the Power 2 to be called the All-State 12, you can call us whatever the hell you want to call us at that point. But I don't want to call it a negligible amount of money because that's probably an 8 to 10% increase on the media payout. But again, in the grand scheme, you receive this sixpence. I think we'll find ourselves none the richer. If it was the Big 12 presented by Allstate, even the Allstate Big 12, to me, that's just like a bowl game. Those have been around forever. It's the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, but everybody just calls it the Liberty Bowl. If you were the Allstate Big 12 or the Big 12 presented by Allstate, everybody would still just call you the Big 12. You get the money. I see no downside to that. But going big Allstate or Allstate 12 for $3 million, and again, that's on the high end. If it's $30 million, it's actually $2 million per school. No, thank you. It's kind of my thought on that.
In the new revenue sharing model, what does $3 million get in athletic department? Because if you're looking at Kansas State, if you're looking at Coleman Hawkins, if you're looking at JT Toppin, if you're looking at Great Osabor as the new market, that gets you 2 basketball players. Maybe. And if the revenue sharing causes schools to pay more because it's going to the university, like what does that really get you? $3 million.
Yeah, I don't know, especially with I don't know. I'll say this, and I want to hear y'all's thoughts on it. But back last summer, almost exactly a year ago, we ran a poll from the Gauchos Twitter account. Said, would you support adding Memphis to the FedEx Big 12 Conference? So the naming rights were kind of implied there. If the sponsorship added $5 million per year per team to the conference payout. Now, $5 million, that's where I think the needle kind of starts to move a little bit. In response to this poll, 59% said yes. They would take on Memphis, which I don't think, no offense to Memphis, is like a super desirable school that everybody else in the Big 12 wants to be affiliated with. But it's kind of like, would you take them if it meant the FedEx sponsorship, because FedEx is based in Memphis, if it meant $5 million? And a decent majority, 59%, say yes. And so that was
date on that?
June 10th, 2023.
Okay.
So this was, I think, this was before we added the 4 corners, which maybe changes the calculus.
But it was
again, this was not to become the FedEx 12 or the big FedEx conference. This was FedEx Big 12, $5 million. And even then, it wasn't even quite 60%. It was a majority, but not overwhelming. So that's kind of where I'm at, is I think Big 12 needs to be your conference name. You could put All-State before or after that if you want. But besides that, I feel like we'll be taking a payout that is ultimately not worth the actual dollars that we're receiving versus what we're losing in brand recognition.
Yeah, the first comment I saw in one of the posts was it's going to be the back 12, the big All-State Conference 12. And you kill the pack and bring in the back. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Money, what were your initial thoughts there? I would echo a lot of what Kyle just said. And there's a comment that I really relate to that I want to get to after I hear Money here.
Yeah, I think my initial impression was just surprised at how much the name sucked. Like, Allstate being a massive corporation probably has plenty of talented people in their marketing departments and in other areas. And I'm sure Allstate has a marketing agency that they work with to do the Mayhem commercials and like all of that brain power. And we came up with the Allstate 12. Like, I feel like if we're going to drop the Big 12, if we're going to move on from a traditional brand name, like that was the best we could do. So I was a little surprised by that, but also I hate the idea of losing the brand and the name recognition behind the Big 12, what it means, what it has meant. So, yeah. Big 12 by Allstate. Sign me up. Allstate 12. I'm good.
Hey, you see some comments in our YouTube stream right now and on social media, but Allstate has this whole mayhem campaign, like protect yourself from mayhem. If we're dropping Big 12, call it the Mayhem Conference. Like that is, people hear that and they'll go, what the hell is that? And, oh, okay, that's the old Big 12. That's where, like you're saying, Money, the smart marketing people can tie in, Allstate's kind of number one commercial theme. I'm sure there's going to be commercials involved if they get the naming rights. I mean, that's what college football is all about now, the commercials. I guess every team can put a logo on their field now. Like, I'd be curious if that means every team now gets the Allstate logo. If that's a conference-wide deal or if the schools still have the option to sell that real estate on their field to other companies. I hope, and Tyler from our Discord brought this up, and I hope he's right, that sometimes stuff like this is floated intentionally just so everybody can basically crap on how bad of an idea it is and kill it. And I think if anybody at Allstate or the Big 12 is paying attention to the reaction online, they will not go with Allstate 12 unless they just really, 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 really need $3 million.
Yeah, my thought here is that if this is a door to open up other money-making opportunities, I'm in for $3 million. I think that makes sense. If this is just the beginning and it opens doors, I'm fine with that. But just for $3 million, I don't think it's enough money to sell your soul. But could you imagine Brent Musburger, who's still around calling Vegas games, but you go back to 2000, let's say the year 2000, and Brent Musburger is coming on ESPN, and he's saying, we're looking live at Mission Tortilla Field on the campus of Texas Tech University for an all-state 12 matchup between the Mission Tortilla Red Raiders and the Energy Company Oklahoma State Cowboys, live at Dr. Pepper Field, Cody Campbell Arena at Jones AT&T Stadium. I mean, it's just a mouthful, and that's the direction we're going. That teams will be branded, conferences will be branded, you'll have the jersey patches, it's all coming, and it'll all be just a couple of more dollars. And at this point, what do you command that the SEC and the Big Ten don't? Well, you do command a name change, because I don't think the SEC or the Big Ten would do that. Even if they brand, I don't think they would change their name. They shouldn't. If they would, probably would be worth way more than $3 million per team. I'll just say this, though. If you are truly doing this, and you see some comments from Brett Yormark at Big 12 meetings, or he talked to the media after the Thursday opening. Before Thursday, he said, we're open for business more than ever. Then you have this news come out. That's what he meant. He's open for business. He's making people money. But then you have Yormark saying, I didn't come from college football. We're not heading in a direction of the old college football. We're heading forward, and we're heading into my realm. And this is what we're doing because this is what I have experience in. And you go back, Yormark brokered the Nextel Cup deal. Is that true? For $750 million for NASCAR. And here's a comment. Sounds like a NASCAR race. It does. It sounds like basketball. It sounds like NASCAR. It sounds like the NBA now with NBA patches. Can you tell me the patch on the Texas Rangers jersey?
I can't. I know the Timberwolves had Fitbit on their jersey when that kind of first came out. I actually don't even know if that's current, though. But yeah, no, I'm not sure.
It's the owner's energy company. But you can't even see it. You have a Texas flag on one sleeve, and you have the little patch on the other sleeve. Nobody ever sees it. It's not a big deal. The Astros also have a patch on their sleeve, which is like green. It's a different color. It's a little obnoxious, but so are the Astros. I'm not opposed to putting patches on jerseys. I'm not opposed to putting 17 logos on the field, but it has to be equitable. You can't just start selling yourself for the price of one player in the new world of college athletics. It has to be more profitable. A couple of comments here. The Arby's Big 12 Conference, our boy Bill Walton's kid, had his first Arby's sandwich ever today. He got the brisket smokehouse, which I've never had, but he's talking it up. I might have to go try one. And then he says, did the Astros wear a patch of Adolis Garcia for Father's Day? I don't think he did. I don't think they did. But we do have Josh Young news. Josh Young playing tonight, I believe, in Round Rock. Let me see if I can venture some stats there from Josh Young's debut.
While you're doing that, I think so. We have another comment that, you need to have 20 million per school to pay players. Okay, but I think everybody understands that if you're not in the Power 2 right now, that there's a scramble for cash. But okay, I don't think people who listen to this podcast, if you listen to this podcast, you're probably pretty diehard about college athletics. To give you all a quick story, y'all know I was in Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, Big Ten country, and more casual fans they're like kind of in a bubble. Like they know Big Ten schools and like a lot of their coworkers went to the Big Ten or whatever. And outside of that, they don't know anything. Like this guy was asking me about Texas Tech. He was like, so is that in the ACC? I was like, no, Big 12. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, Big 12. I don't think y'all realize how many people would not know what the hell the All-State 12 is for like the next 5 years after they change the name. Like you would lose any amount of recognition that you might currently have. So while yes, there's a scramble for cash, I think there's a better way to do it than ensuring anybody outside of the diehards who already watch this conference basically forgets that you exist or doesn't know what your name is. Like, I don't know, have a big fundraising campaign with grassroots donors, the billionaire mega donors, to start like a trust fund or something. We still don't even – we've been being told that basketball is undervalued. We don't even really make that much TV money for basketball. I forgot what the number was, but it was estimated that it's like a very, very small percentage of the overall TV contract. Like, can we explore some more normal things before becoming the All-State 12 for $3 million?
Well, let me ask you this, because there is some other information out there that there's a 20% offer to buy into the conference from private equity, which would be, I think there was a firm called Redbird a couple of weeks ago that was quoted as saying in probably another Dillinger story, I don't remember who wrote it, about he was talking to 50 some odd athletic departments. Hey, would you like this if we did it, kind of thing, buying in. But if that's the future, it seems like they would buy into a league rather than a conference. And if you're buying into the new college football league and starting a new college football league, is the All-State 12 just a stopgap to get most of your teams back into the Super League? If the Super League is, let's say, I don't know, 64 teams, and you have the Super League Southeast, which is the SEC, you have the Super League Southwest, which would be the Big 12 plus the Arizonas and Utahs. You have the California League, which would be the Big 10 California schools, and then up that way. And then you have the Big 10 East, which would be Michigan, Ohio State, and over. And then you're just back into and then maybe down into some of the ACC schools, but you're just back into the Power 5, except it's going to be 4 conferences, 16 apiece, and you're going to have a championship a playoff that goes from those 4 conferences into the playoffs. I mean, it's going to be 2 NFLs. Is that the stopgap? Because I think Texas Tech is a top 64 team. I think most of the teams in the Big 12 are. But teams like Vanderbilt and Rutgers and Maryland's football program and Georgia Tech, like a lot of those programs probably shouldn't be in the Power Conference. So I don't know where you're going from here. But if it's a stopgap just to keep you afloat, until then, maybe it makes a little more sense.
Can I be honest for a minute?
I love it when you're honest.
Dead ass, as the kids say. I love college football. I love watching the games. I used to really love conference realignment rumors and scenarios and kind of got burnt out on that over the last 2 or 3 summers, however long this has been going on. Can they just figure this out? How many teams make the playoff? Who the governing body is? Do the players get paid? I honestly do not care to follow the news on this. I'm not reading these articles. I don't know if this is going to go to an antitrust deal with Congress. Somebody just figure it out and then tell me when and where Tech is playing. Because honestly, I'm sick of trying to figure out all of these details and rulings. And does the NCAA matter anymore? Can we just fast forward to the part, like wherever this is going, whether that's a new league outside the NCAA or a ruling from Congress or whatever, just pick the 64 teams or 128 and make it relegation style, whatever, and pay the players whatever, make the TV guys pay whatever. Like this didn't used to be that complicated. We played college football for 100 years, and it mostly made sense from a regional standpoint, from a money standpoint, from a student athlete experience standpoint. And it feels like all the smart people in charge are just making it worse and worse and worse at every turn. So to be totally honest, I'm not following all of this private equity. I don't read all these Ross Dellinger articles. If the ACC collapses, I guess, I'll find out when everybody else does, but I'm not reading into any rumors. Just tell me when and where Tech is playing, their schedule, and let's move on with it.
Where would you guys rank Texas Tech as not an athletic department? Because in a super league, people always connect athletic departments and super leagues. This would be a football super league. Everything else would be outside of that purview. Where would you rank Texas Tech as a football program? New facilities and all, heading toward a super league. Let's cut out media money because I think that's uncontrollable to the team, right? To the program. But where would you rank Texas Tech as just a football program?
I think if it's 64 teams, I think we're a lock. If it's 32, I feel really, really nervous. And honestly, I'm pretty sure we're not included in that. 48, I think, is the sweet spot. I still think we're likely to get in. 40 makes me kind of nervous. I feel good about 48. 64 is a lock. So however many teams they come up with, that's kind of, I guess that's yours. Maybe like mid 40s is kind of where I would peg us. And how nervous I am is dependent on how far away we are from that number.
What do you think, Money?
I'll say between 50 and 54.
See, I would go higher than y'all. I think you're closer to 35. But yeah, if you're at 32, if it's a true super league and they get down to 32, very nervous. But I also might prefer that because you wouldn't get as much money. But I do think the leftovers would go back to a truer college. You're not going to stop playing football if you're not in the Super League. You're going to go back to a league without Alabama, without Ohio State, without all the schools, LSU, Michigan, all the schools that have won national championships in the last 15, 20 years. You're going to be without all those guys, Texas, Oklahoma, and you're going to be one of the better schools in the next group. Will people watch? Will there be games on TV? Yes. I think there will still be games on TV. You might not have them on ABC in primetime, but there will be primetime games of every college football game. It's not like they stopped playing MAC games when the MAC wasn't included. It's not like they stopped playing all these games. You might have more on FS1, but you already have games there. So I don't think that college football is going to shudder if they do make a super league. Would it be upsetting to be left out of a super league? Maybe, but you wouldn't have to beat Georgia and LSU and all those schools for a national championship. You'd have to beat Mississippi State. And I think you can do that. I think you can win a national championship outside of the Super League. So Would it be worth it? Would it be prestigious? Would anyone care? I know Texas Tech would hang a banner, and I know we would be there at the game. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm a lot like you, Kyle. Just wake me up when it's over.
Yeah, I just want to watch college football.
Would you watch Texas Tech outside of the Super League?
I think I will stop watching Texas Tech football when the good Lord closes my eyes permanently.
Amen, brother.
I mean, I've watched Tech football, I've been jazzed as heck to go watch a spring scrimmage for a team that wound up being 4-8 play each other. So, like, yeah, I'll watch Tech versus Baylor or whoever. Call it whatever league you want. But I would honestly love us to just cut to the chase, adopt an NFL-like model with a salary cap, rules that everybody's playing by. The NFC South, even though it's garbage, makes as much money as the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, let's just get it over with.
Yeah, there are salary caps, there's regulation, there's rules. Yeah, I'm in. I'm going to answer this one. I'm not sure I follow. Why would Mississippi State and Maryland get put out of their current conference? How would that even happen? Because, in my opinion, if you're creating a Super League, you are creating a new thing. You're not saying, hey, SEC, let's go do this. You're saying, here's a Super League. We're going to draft teams. Because if you're truly for the money trying to get the best league, you're not going to just allow Vanderbilt to move on. You would shutter the SEC. You might buy that name out for usage. You might buy that brand. You might buy the Big Ten brand. But it's not going to be a Super League, in my opinion. It could still be this way. But in my vision, in my mind, you would be creating a new league with new ownership and private equity. And when the NFL merged with the AFL or the USFL teams came over back in the 70s or whenever it was, the 80s, you didn't take all those teams. You just took the ones you wanted. So I think in the SEC, you'd probably take the top. If there's only 32 teams, you'd probably take a bunch of those SEC teams, but you'd also take Clemson. You'd also take probably Florida State. You take the top half of the Big Ten. And Texas Tech might be in the top 32. I don't know. But Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Clemson, USC is a brand. I think you would Oregon. I mean, I think you're counting up a bunch of schools before you get to 32 saying, does it make sense to have those 31 and Vanderbilt? If you go to 42, does it make sense to have all those teams and Rutgers and Northwestern who don't provide any value? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. Now, it doesn't compute to me that they're in the frickin' Big Ten either or the SEC. They don't deserve it. But I think that's just because they're grandfathered in. There's nothing to grandfather into a new Super League because it's new. That's my opinion. And if they blow everything up, why would they not get the best 32 instead of, we'll just get whoever gets us Georgia and Alabama and just whoever comes with Kentucky. Like, I don't think they would force Kentucky into a football Super League just because they've been with those schools. Now, Auburn probably gets in, but Auburn has a national championship pedigree, like recently. So, I don't know. That's just my opinion. Matt Hamlin says the Astros still living rent-free in y'all's heads. In a down year, love to see it. The Texas Rangers are the reigning, defending world champions. So until somebody else takes the ring or the belt, they are the champions. Josh Young against the Tacoma Rainiers, down 11-3 in a manager's challenge, but Josh Young is 2 for 3 with a run and an RBI. No strikeouts. And I believe it was 2 singles. So there you go. Josh Young, baby. And Spores also pitched, but he did not do well. Got 2 outs. All right, let's move on a little bit. Tim Tadlock in the portal again today. I'm not going to give specifics, but I do want to talk about the aggressiveness in which the Tim Tadlock staff is portaling. Power 5 transfers, JUCO All-Americans. You've got a good mix there, players and pitchers. Does this surprise you at all that they are so aggressive in the portal this offseason?
The what?
I believe it's called the portal in baseball, the transfer portal.
Not familiar. And I thought Tim Tadlock didn't know what that was either.
That's what I had heard in the Discord and otherwise. But he's gotten a few players out of there in the past too that we seem to forget. Brandon Birdsell, Bryce Bonin, Andrew Morris, Patrick Monteverde, Gavin Cash.
Oh, jinx.
Easton Murrell.
Okay, well, I'm glad we're using the portal still again. Maybe more this time. I don't know. I saw one. There's no rivals or on 3 for baseball recruiting rankings, but one list said we were number 16 right now in the transfer rankings, and we were number 130 something last year. So it's better according to the people who rank it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you I know all about some pitcher from USF or Cal Baptist. I think a lot of it in college baseball, I've always believed this is a numbers game. You need, 12 or 15 or more arms that you think can be potentially weekend starters to find 3 that actually are weekend starters. So anytime you tell me we're adding a decent or good arm with upside, okay, yeah, sure. And if he's got good stuff or takes the next step, maybe he can be a weekend starter. So that's all good. I'm legitimately glad that they're maybe acknowledging some shortcomings from last offseason and trying to play in the modern era of college baseball. We'll see how it works out. I mean, there's I think after the kind of season they had and where the fan base is at, there's nothing you can really say until they get back out on the field and show something. But yeah, I'm glad they're portaling.
According to Justin Apodaca, he says the site 64 Analytics has them as the top 12 class.
There you go. Even better.
Third in the Big 12, behind Kansas and Houston, with one less commitment. I will say the wealth of knowledge between football, basketball, and baseball recruiting is frustrating sometimes, because you really have no idea what's going on unless you're paying for a site like D1 Baseball as a transfer portal tracker or the perfect game in high school recruiting. You can kind of follow along, but even then, it's way different than having 24/7 and Rivals and On3 all having a wealth of knowledge about every football class down to 101 to 130. It's just pretty amazing. All right, Kyle. I have a little bit of a pop quiz for you. You messaged me claiming that you could give me details on any game of a Texas Tech football world from 2012 to today. And I thought to myself, well, I probably could do that. But I have heard you talk about game-winning kicks of games I did not even remember. So I'm going to do this for you right now. I'm going to give you Oklahoma State versus Texas Tech 2015. I want you to give me some information about the game, and I want to see if you can truly do this. I want you to tell me if Texas Tech was home or away. I want some touchdowns from the game, and I want the sequence at the end.
Okay, I'll do my best. 2015 Oklahoma State. We were blackout. It was an afternoon game.
True.
And so their starting quarterback was Mason Rudolph, but by the second half, they were just running J.W. Walsh and having a lot of success with quarterback run. We got out to
For
something
sure.
crazy like a 24-7 lead. This is like Mahomes. I think Jakeem Grant had a kick return, and then he also had like a really long screen pass. So we came out of the gates really good. I think it was something like 24-7. Turned into a shootout, and then by the end of it, I mean, the defense of that area couldn't make a stop. I think we lost 70-53 or 70-56. And there's some kind
53.
of sequence. Yeah. There's some kind of sequence, I feel like, with an onside kick. Maybe they like returned an onside kick attempt for a touchdown or scored right after one. I don't know. I feel like it was maybe a little bit closer than that, but then they extended the lead at the end. Or a pick six? Was there a Mahomes pick six late?
There it is. It was a
Yeah.
pick six. That's what I was waiting on. The pick six really turned the game. They were down by 10, and the pick six at the end made them up by 17. The first two of the first three touchdowns were a really long screen pass to.
I don't think he housed it. I think he got tackled at like the 3.
That's true. And then there was also a 100-yard kickoff return from Jakeem Grant.
So, timeout. I don't know if you were going to give me another one or not. I'm happy to do more. But Starter in the comments says you guys planned this. So, Starter, comment any game from 2012 if you want to verify that this is not planned.
That was unplanned, and that was much better than I thought. You pulled J.W. Walsh, which I didn't think you would.
Yeah, God, I remember J.W. Walsh, unfortunately.
So I have
Money?
another game. I have another game up, but if Money wants to give one because he was not aware of this, I'll look up the box score and check Kyle's numbers.
Money, you give me one, and then we'll wait for Starter to comment his own.
What's the date range?
Any game that Tech has played since 2012.
Okay. 2013 versus Kansas State.
Okay, we were in the Never Quit all gray Under Armour uniforms at the Jones, 11 a.m. kickoff. Davis Webb was starting. Do what?
Go ahead. I was just you're gonna have all the information before I even get back to the box score.
Yeah, this was the Saturday before Veterans Day, so maybe it might have been November 9th to be precise, or November 7th. We're wearing the all gray Never Quit uniforms. Davis Webb starts at quarterback. Eventually gets replaced by Mayfield, who has like a little bit of success, but then throws a pick six that famous gif is from, where he just kind of lunges at the guy. Their running back, John, I'm blanking on his last name, really short guy, like 5'6", played high school ball at Waco Midway. He had a really long touchdown run, and it was demoralizing because I was sitting in the student section. He's running right at me for like 80 yards. And you just have to sit there for 8 seconds, and he's going to score.
Yeah.
John.
Starts with an H.
I know. I want to say Henderson. That's not right. John. Gosh, I can't remember.
H-U.
They had a quarterback named Hubenak, but that's not John. I don't know. Anyway, they killed you.
My first name.
What?
Hubert.
Okay. Jason Morrow got hurt in that game. He was out for the rest of the game. I don't remember the final. What?
What did he hurt?
Shoulder, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember the final score, but I think it got ugly by the end. That's all I remember about that game. Who was Kansas State's quarterback? That was before the Jake Waters era. Was it? He was there in 2013. Oh, that's right. He was 13 and 14.
He threw 9 passes in that game.
Yeah, he didn't need to throw any more than that.
Times.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Can you name the leading rusher for Texas Tech in that game?
2013. So I don't remember off the top of my head. I would just be guessing here, but I don't know. Was it Kenny Williams?
Linebacker Kenny Williams, yes.
Okay, so starter who thinks we planned this as 2014 at UTEP. You picked the wrong one because I was there. We were wearing black, white. I think they were wearing grays. Jamil Showers was their quarterback. He transferred from A&M. He had played quarterback at A&M under Cliff, who was his offensive coordinator. What was their coach's name? Sean Kugler, I think. Really late kickoff in El Paso. I remember I didn't have cell.
In Arizona.
I didn't have cell service because my phone thought I was in Mexico, and I didn't have international cell service. We played really, really badly, but we threw a corner route to Bradley Marquez for a touchdown. Justin Stockton, true freshman at the time, had a good game. And then we made a stop. We scored to go up late in the fourth quarter, and we made a defensive stop. They started throwing the ball for some reason. They probably could have run it. And we survived something like, I don't know, 30-27, 31-27, something like that.
Very close. It's 30-26.
Okay.
And there was a touchdown to Bradley Marquez with 2.5 minutes left to go up 30-26, and then a 4-and-out to follow.
How many of those were incomplete passes?
2 incomplete passes and 2 Jamil Showers runs, which what I would assume were pass plays that he scrambled on.
Yeah, I think that's right. They had Aaron Jones at the time, and like they didn't have a ton of clock, but I think they had some timeouts. They could have at least run it a few times. So they kind of gifted you one, and you escaped, and that was right after you escaped against Central Arkansas. That was kind of when you knew that team was not going to be very good.
Off the top of your head, Central Arkansas final score?
42-35. You recovered an onside kick where had they gotten it, they would have had the ball down 1 possession.
That's true. All right, we'll save some of these other games for later in. I think you've proven yourself today. We'll give you a passing grade today. Pass, fail. Passing today.
Apology accepted, starter, for accusing us of planning this.
I will say that first one was pretty impressive to get all of the things you got. The J.W. Walsh comment, the final score dead on. That was impressive. He's him, they say.
You know, these brutal games, they get seared into your memory, for better or for worse.
Yeah. Man. All right. Any other things we talked about beforehand? Any basketball movement at all? Money? I don't think there's any coming. Have you heard anything else about maybe 1 or 2 more additions because you do have the scholarships available?
Yeah, I've heard nothing. It's been very, very quiet. But again, I think reiterating what I said a few weeks ago, I think they feel like they're in a good spot now. I think if there's some late summer depth or maybe another high school guy you want to take, maybe an international guy as we touched on, maybe that's when, you see some more movement. But yeah, I think they're solid right now.
Do we have a replacement game for the Aggie basketball game? So from what I've read or can tell, the Aggies are going to play in that other NTE, but that game is still happening, just on a different date. Is that true?
That's what I believe is the case right now, is that they're trying to reschedule it.
I hope it does get rescheduled. I would like an Aggie Red Raider basketball revival a little bit. Maybe get AC Law on the court there at wherever they play. That'd be fun. Not playing, obviously, but in the mix. Nathan Geese from the AJ put out a list of games for the basketball team, so there are some out there. Obviously, the Wyoming games were on there, and some other nondescript games. I don't believe currently there's any outstanding basketball news to talk about, though. I do think that Grant McCaslin is back in Lubbock after his trip abroad. Joey McGuire and company have been doing some recruiting. There is a July 1st date for a 4-star defensive end that is either going to commit to Texas, Washington, Oklahoma, or Texas Tech. So just a list of blue bloods there. In the college football world, lots of recent success from those programs that would have him in the mix. We made fun of the Longhorns cars down the road into the entrance. And then Texas Tech had some vehicles in their sports performance center to take some pictures with. They're also driving around, what did I call them earlier? Sidekicks? Is that what it is?
Slingshots.
Slingshots engaged. I've never seen a slingshot. I have never driven a slingshot. Apparently those things are pretty cool. And I think it was branded as a Patrick Mahomes slingshot, kind of an off-brand Patrick Mahomes slingshot. So that was cool. Would you drive around a slingshot and want to commit to that school because you drove a slingshot, Kyle? Money?
Yes.
That need a little? It looks pretty cool. Depends how fast you can drive it, I guess. Kyle, you a big slingshot guy?
Not really. I'm not a big car guy, though. I mean, I've owned 2 vehicles in my life, a 98 F-150 and an 08 F-150. So it's just, honestly, it's probably like us talking sports to non-sports fans, but somebody's like, "Oh, I've got a 62 Chevelle with the da-da-da." I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's really cool. That's awesome." But doesn't move the needle for me.
You're on your third vehicle, yeah?
Second, I still,
Don't you have the wife got the minivan?
yeah.
Oh. See, Starter says I thought you bought a van too.
Yeah, it's a family vehicle. I drive the minivan every now and then.
But you're still in the truck.
Yeah.
I thought you traded the truck in for the minivan.
No, traded my wife's car in for the minivan.
Oh, probably more value there.
Yeah.
As a fellow 08 Ford F-150 driver.
Yeah, I did the Kelly Blue Book, and it's to the point where like probably shouldn't make any more repairs on it because it's just not really worth it.
No, it is not. All right. Josh Young game over. Went 2 for 3 with an RBI. Did not get another at bat. I would assume about a week down in the AAA before he gets called back up to the Rangers. He is on the ballot to be a DH for the All-Star game. I don't think he'll get voted in, but if you're a voting kind, go and vote for Josh Young for the All-Star game. Final thoughts?
Do you want to remember some guys from the countdown to kickoff?
Yes. But first, Kyle, if someone forgot about you and you got upset about it and maybe threw a punch because they didn't remember you and then needed to call someone, who would you call?
I would call my friends over at Barnett, Howard, and Williams, bhwlawfirm.com. Of course, I'm not the aggressive type. I would never do that. But, I bet a lot of people who need an attorney don't think that they'll ever find themselves in that situation. They hope that you don't find yourself in that situation. But if you do, it's good to have somebody you can trust. They are 3 double Texas Tech grads based in Fort Worth, but they handle cases all across the state of Texas. Criminal defense, personal injury, certified in Title IX student litigation. They can help you out. Barnett, Howard, and Williams, bhwlawfirm.com.
All right, who do we get this week?
Going back to last week, I think last Saturday was John Thompson, player that most people probably aren't familiar with. I can't say I was terribly familiar with him, but played in the early 50s, and despite that era when nobody threw the ball, he actually had 14 career interceptions, which is still tied for third in school history. I want to know how many times he was targeted because there's just no way it was that many. And so to come up with 14 picks is pretty incredible. He had 8 in a single season, which is tied for second in school history. Number 83 was Baron Batch, well-known running back from the air raid era. He did a little bit of everything, 3,600 career total yards from scrimmage, most of that rushing, but pretty good pass catcher as well. He's a top 10 in school history for both career rushing yards and touchdowns. 82 was Trey Haverty, now coaching at SMU. I didn't know this. He actually made third team AP All-American his senior year, 2004. When I think of that 2004 team, he is not the first receiver I think of. Probably thinking Jarrett Hicks or young Joel Falani, but he was second in the Big 12 in yards that year. He led the Big 12 in catches. And a pretty impressive final season there that earns him a spot on the list. He quote tweeted us and said wreck him, so that was cool. And then we had a tie for 81. Billy Taylor and Larry Isaac. They were teammates. And I can't even really tell who was the lead back at the time. They overlapped for 3 years. And so their stats, you're splitting hairs. I think Billy Taylor probably had the best season among the two, but Larry Isaac's career numbers were probably better. So I was like, let's just make it a tie. But a couple of really good running backs from the 70s. Larry Isaac was on both the 73 and 76 teams, which are, in my opinion, indisputably two of the top 4 in school history. Who else do we got? Number 80 was Ryan Aycock. 11 career picks, 338 career tackles. He is one of just 2 players. You'll see the other one a little bit later in the countdown, who is top 10 in school history for both those categories, INTs and tackles. A couple really big moments. Picked off Texas in 02 to seal that win. Picked off Eli Manning in 03 to seal that win. So pretty special moments and a great career for Ryan Aycock. Number 79, Danny Hardaway. Broke the color barrier at Texas Tech, at least as a scholarship athlete, first African-American scholarship athlete at Tech in 1969. Led the team in rushing that year, was top 10 in the Southwest Conference in rushing, and obviously a special contributor to the Texas Tech football program. 78, Jarrett Hicks. He was the guy I alluded to last episode. When he left, he had a lot of school records for receiving in terms of career totals. Was ultimately just surpassed, obviously, by Crabtree, but several others as well who maybe had the opportunity to play several years in the Leach system. But he was 2-time All Big 12. Fun tidbit: he got touchdowns from 4 different Tech quarterbacks: Simmons, Cumbie, Hodges, and Harrell. He was just shy of 200 catches, 3,000 yards, and 30 TDs. So amazing career. This is where I feel like it's a little bit controversial. Number 77, Cody Hodges. Number 76, Seth Dagey. I don't know how many people would put Dagey over Hodges. But based on the criteria we laid out, I think it leans Dagey. Very close, though. So I don't know what y'all's thoughts are on that. You are muted.
If Hodgins had won, try one more time. If Cody Hodges had won one more game, either in the regular season or that Cotton Bowl, he would be maybe in the 40s. But with just one game, one season, and one of those losses there in the regular season or that late game. What was it, Houston? Who'd lose too early?
We lost to Texas. They won the national championship that year, undefeated, and Oklahoma State and Stillwater.
Oklahoma State. Well, if you beat Oklahoma State, maybe, or if you just beat Alabama and you get that one in, I think that's a much different career for him. But just getting the one start, and somebody commented too high, which I read as should have been lower, as in closer to 100. But maybe he was saying that he should have been better in the list. I don't know. It's like, hey, turn up the air conditioner. Well, do you want it colder or do you want it warmer?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Hodges was tough because the Alabama kicker shanked that and it still went in. But you're like, okay, if that kick goes a couple feet further wide or is a little bit shorter, is Cody Hodges a better quarterback? No, he's still the same guy. But if that kick misses, it's a 10-win team, which I think would be, I don't know. I haven't had many of those in school history. Would have won the Cotton Bowl for the first time in school history, which would be today like the only equivalent of a New Year's Six bowl that you would have. So that was part of what we judged was contribution to team success and moments of peak greatness. That 05 team is legitimately, I think, considered one of the best in school history if that field goal from Alabama doesn't go in.
Yeah.
Doesn't make Cody Hodges any better or worse of a quarterback just because that field goal went in. But when comparing him to Daggy 2 full years as a starter, so the stats are much better. Stats are also really good. They're not just better because he played longer. Daggy played really well in those 2 years. And looking at moments of peak greatness, okay, Hodges beat OU, he beat Nebraska, almost beat OU, Nebraska, and Alabama in the same season. That would have been amazing. Well, Daggy, like we talked about last episode, beat number 3 OU in Norman, broke a 38 or 39 game home win streak for them, and beat at the time undefeated number 4 West Virginia, who had the Heisman frontrunner Geno Smith, by like 35 points. So in terms of like best wins as a starting quarterback, both of them have 2 really, really impressive ones, in my opinion. And yeah, it's a shame that 05 team, like you said, Rob, even had they won one of those games in the regular season, then we appear in a BCS bowl instead of the Cotton Bowl in all likelihood. And then who knows what happens from there. If you win that game, then it's, I think, indisputably the best team in school history. If they go to a BCS game and win it, that would be their 11th win. And then Hodges would be, he's like on Texas Tech, Ring of Honor watch, top 10, top 15 watch for purposes of this list. So it's tough because I know all that, and I'm like, well, he's not any better or worse of a player because that Alabama kick somehow went in. But we laid out the criteria before we started listing guys, and team success and all that does play a factor. And that was like one of the single games or single plays that, there's all these games like, oh, we could have won this, we could have won that one, but like it's the difference between being 7-5 or 6-6. That's the difference between doing something you've never done as a program before, winning the Cotton Bowl, and not. So,
and their one touchdown, the guy's knee was down.
Yeah, it's true.
Who played quarterback for Alabama that year?
Is that Brody Croyle?
Brody Croyle. I don't remember the receiver's name, but I do remember Brody Croyle.
Yeah. That was just it's just before Saban got there. So not quite, today's Alabama. But also, had you won that game, you'd have an active win streak right now over Alabama, Clemson, Nebraska, and Oklahoma, which would be pretty cool. I doubt many programs can say that. Well, a lot of programs can say that about Nebraska, but the other 3 maybe not so much.
All right. Any final thoughts, Money?
I'm going with Seth Daggy there. But yeah, that's all my final thoughts. We need some basketball news. Still riding Mavs in 7. Never a doubt. If there's a team that can choke, it's the Celtics. I got a 50-piece coming from Kyrie tomorrow.
Hell yeah.
Let's go.
Briggs says Greg McElroy was going to Texas Tech before that game. I don't remember that.
I feel like there was Greg McElroy and Julio Jones smoke, actually.
Is that true?
I don't know if they were like coming here, but I think that maybe they had like visits, or we thought they were maybe going to come here.
Here's a Craig James article from 2009 from Greg McElroy. He didn't write it, but this is from al.com, alabama.com. Greg McElroy still considers himself a fan of Texas Tech, the school where he once committed to play football. I do not remember this at all. I'm still a Texas Tech fan here. Believe it or not, I still pour for them and kept up with their season. I have a lot of friends on the team, so it was just really disappointing. I'm upset about that. I'm upset for Coach Leach and obviously what happened with the James family. I'm upset that their son had to deal with that. Hopefully everything can get worked out. This is like in the midst of the beginnings of the issues. Yeah, he was apparently committed here. I'd have to go back and look at that. I don't remember that being a thing. So there you go.
Yeah. No offense to Greg McElroy, but he was the Alabama era where they won, like, despite not having that impressive of quarterback play. Like, he won their first natty under Saban, and then they had like A.J. McCarron and like Jacob Coker.
Because Colt McCoy got hurt, right?
Yeah, it was that game. But they had like dudes that were like, yeah, like he's a fine quarterback. Yep. But it wasn't until later when they had like Tua, Jalen Hurts.
But put him in the system, Kyle.
Bryce Young. System.
Put McElroy in the system of Texas Tech, and he's a legend, right?
I mean, as we've seen, anybody can throw for 5,000 yards in this system, which is why we haven't seen anybody do it in a decade.
Well, we haven't had the system in a decade.
I mean, we're kind of Cliff and Kitley. I feel like are kind of running the system. Maybe not
Patrick
as much.
Patrick did it.
Yeah, 8 years ago.
Yeah, he's also the best player in the world right now.
That was actually one of my favorite B.J. Simmons tweets, of which there are many. But it was some year when we were running like crappy version of the air raid, and two quarterbacks that both threw for like 1,200 yards on the season, and he was like, "Yeah, I thought anybody could just line up in the system and throw for 5,000 yards." It's like maybe it's not that easy, huh?
All right, I'm gonna tee you up for a final thought here.
Briggs McElroy was just a winner.
Yeah, he's going on his Eli Manning right now. I'm gonna tee you up here, Kyle. Okay. Texas A&M at the College World Series had two fans thrown out for trying to fight Florida players in the dugout and allegedly making fun or bringing up a tragedy that happened with their bat boy this season or last. Thoughts on Texas A&M fans and the class in which they participate in games?
One of my first experiences with an A&M fan was in College Station at the – I can't remember if it was 09 or 2010. It must have been 09. Texas versus A&M game, as has been discussed on this podcast, mostly by Rob, coming up through grade school. My best friend had Texas season tickets, so I was a Texas fan by proxy. I would go to all the games with him. Nobody in my family had any collegiate loyalties, and I was in Austin. So anyway, we went to College Station for the Texas versus A&M game that year. Texas was fighting to make it to the Big 12 championship and national championship game. A&M had a solid team, like top 20, top 25. So we were sitting in the end zone, like right by the tunnel where the players run out. And so we're like kind of far from, but within shouting distance of fans on the other side of the tunnel, also sitting in the bleachers. And mind you, I'm 16, so not like a child, but clearly not an adult either. And it's like back and forth. I think A&M never quite took the lead, but maybe like tied it up a couple times. It got close, and like their momentum swings back and forth. And this guy who's like in his 30s in A&M gear is like yelling across the tunnel to me and my 16-year-old friend, just talking all kinds of noise. Like there was one, like maybe Texas scored on a play and like A&M takes the next kickoff back to tie it right back up or whatever. So it's like every time A&M got the momentum back, he's like yelling something at us. And this is the part that alone is not that crazy. Like you'll probably see that in a lot of stadiums. But we're like shouting back and forth with him, and this other A&M guy jumps in and I guess, of course, assumes that this other A&M guy is in the right. He's like, hey. He's like, who started all this anyway? And we're like, that guy did. Like, the adult started yelling at us kids, and we're immature, so we were talking back. And it was just one of those. You could tell he felt like a doof. He was like, oh well, I figured when I asked the question that you guys started it. So anyway, I saw some stuff online that like A&M fans now are claiming these guys were plants. That like just two guys that bought A&M gear to make A&M look bad.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of just like refusal to acknowledge the obviously apparent. A&M, like before they left for the SEC, I would contend that they were your biggest rival. I mean, they multiple times in the decades that you played them in the Southwest Conference and the Big 12, multiple times tried to kidnap the Masked Rider's horse. They successfully did it one time. She was with foal, and they, I think, caused the horse to have a miscarriage. They like spray painted her. She was found tied up. I mean, they did crap like that all the time when you were playing. They graffitied the Will Rogers statue in Memorial Circle. So they do stuff like that all the time. Was it 2001 or whenever when they like started a fight among their own fan section at the Jones and then like claimed it was Tech fans, and then it was proven that it wasn't, and then they just like never took responsibility for it. They claimed that feces were smeared all over their team bus. Turns out it was fish bait, which like may have even been a A&M like fish prank, because I don't know, I guess they prank freshmen because they call them fish and stuff. Never corrected the record, like, oh, actually those weren't human feces smeared all over our bus. So anyway, they act up all the time, or have like throughout the course of at least the A&M Tech rivalry, and like now you see this kind of behavior in Omaha. Not only do they not take any responsibility for it or acknowledge like, hey, some of our fans are kind of crazy, which is good. Like that's what makes the sport awesome. Is all of us, fan is short for fanatic. We go crazy for our school. I think there's a boundary there where you don't like kidnap the other team's live mascot. Boundaries that you don't cross. But on top of all that, like that alone to me is a problem. But they'll also be like, yeah, I was in Lubbock in 2003, and we were wheeling in my 97-year-old great grandpappy for his last game. And all these Tech fans, 40,000 of them all at once said, bleep you, mother bleeper, and they all shattered their beer bottles and stabbed grandpappy in the neck, and everybody saw it, and everybody knows that Tech fans do this at every game. And it's like, okay, beer bottles not allowed in the stadium until, I don't know, 15 years later, and even then they're aluminum cans. Like nobody threw a bottle at your grandpappy. And they just say this, like the battery stuff. It's because they've like heard other people say it, and I guess just assumed that it was true. So not only will they not acknowledge the truth about their own fan base and their own fan base's behaviors, they'll just like come up with stuff about opposing fan bases, like, oh, this classless trash out in Lubbock. We would never, not with the Aggie honor code, we would never behave this way. And Rob, my standard of proof on this has always been, at least in the last, 10 years. If something happens at the Jones, there's 60,000 people with a camera and a video recorder in their pocket. And there's a broadcast and, all this stuff. If something this wild happened, like it would be on social media. You see fights at stadiums and stuff that goes to social media all the time. And that's always been my standard proof. Is like, show me a picture. So show me a video of any of this happening. Like, show me any picture of a battery lying on the field at Jones AT&T Stadium, and I'll condemn it. But like Gary Patterson never produced those videos of people throwing frozen water bottles at his dome at a 96-degree game in September. None of these fans have ever. When they'll tell you to like pull the tape, they're like, oh yeah, I think it was 2007 Oklahoma. They're like, yeah, we were standing on the sideline with our helmets on all game because they're throwing coins and batteries at us. You can just watch the ESPN broadcast and they're not wearing their helmets on the sideline. That's always been my standards. Like, show me an ounce of evidence and I'll condemn it. And then when it did happen, like we stormed the field against Texas, that student clearly shoved that Texas player during the field rush, and we said, you're an idiot if you do that. Condemned it. We didn't say, that guy was probably just a UT fan wearing a red T-shirt and wanted to make us look bad. And so, like, there's clear video, multiple angles on the broadcast of these two morons screaming at the dugout. It's like, you have all these horror stories of things that allegedly happened to you in Lubbock. Nobody has produced a video like that in the 20 years they've been claiming that this has been going on. And then here we are, it's like the bottom of the second inning, and their fans are doing what they claim we've been doing for 2 decades. It's preposterous. It's absurd.
Wild. And they get escorted out. They should be banned from Omaha. I don't think they should ever be allowed back. And that's crazy.
I'm fine with that.
Try and get into the dugout. It's crazy.
And again, like it happens everywhere. Every stadium has fans that yell obscenities, that yell at the opposing team, all that. But like leaning over the dugout, and if you're right, if that report is correct about like bringing up an incident with a bad boy, it's just like so far beyond. Like, oh yeah, okay, all schools have crazy fans. That part is true. Every school has a fan that has done something that the rest of the fan base is like embarrassed by, wishes they wouldn't have done. I feel like usually the cooler minds, cooler heads in the room can say, yeah, our student section shouldn't have yelled that, or this guy shouldn't have said that, done that. But to immediately go like, well, those could have been FBI agents undercover just trying to make the Aggies look bad is come on, guys. Just say like, hey, those 2 guys are 2 out of 10,000 that are here. 99% of us aren't like that. And everybody goes, yeah, okay, yeah, we get that. It happens. But that's not really the response that I've seen.
Have you watched any of the College World Series?
No.
Bunch of walk-offs. It's been exciting. It's been fun.
Sure it has. It's just like tough to watch when you're not even close.
All right, here's my final thought. Kyle used to give us Norwegian prophecies or whatever, proverbs. Got a Cajun proverb for you here. In life, everything is possible with a little hope and a lot of love. There you go. There you go. All right. Love y'all.